I never believed rich people could be truly dangerous until I met Ethan Vale, the youngest real estate millionaire in my entire state. I was just a broke 24-year-old barista when our paths crossed, and trust me, I wish they never had. Everything started with a spilled latte. I'm not kidding. I was working a double shift at a crowded coffee shop downtown when a guy in a tailored navy suit stormed in like he owned the place. He ordered some complicated drink, extra this, double that, oat milk, no foam, make it exactly 137 degrees. I tried my best, but when I handed it to him, some idiot bumped into me and the cup tilted. A few drops hit his perfect shirt. His eyes went cold instantly, and he said something I'll never forget. "Do you have any idea who I am?" I didn't, and I didn't care until he made sure I did. He snapped a photo of me, demanded my manager fire me for incompetence, and when my manager refused, Ethan threatened to buy the entire building and shut us down. We all thought he was bluffing. He wasn't. 2 weeks later, the shop received an eviction notice. New landlord, Vale Properties. Owner, Ethan Vale. My life went downhill fast. Lost my job, couldn't pay rent, ended up sleeping in my car. Meanwhile, Ethan kept showing up around the neighborhood like he enjoyed watching me fall apart. But the real plot twist? He didn't just want to ruin me. He wanted to control me. It got to the point where he offered me a job at his mansion. Something vague, something that felt wrong the moment he described it. I said no. And that's when everything escalated. Lights slashed, tires slashed. My bank account locked for suspicious activity. My landlord suddenly refusing to give my deposit back. Someone was pulling strings, and all signs pointed to Ethan. But then, I found out something about him. Something he desperately needed to keep hidden. Something that could destroy his entire empire. And that's when the story really begins. I didn't plan on spying on a millionaire, but desperation does things to you. After weeks of Ethan messing with my life, I wanted answers. I wanted leverage. And I found it, by accident, when I picked up a catering shift at one of his private parties. They needed extra hands last minute, and the money was too good to refuse. His mansion looked like it was built to intimidate. Glass walls, black stone driveway, luxury cars lined up like trophies. Everyone inside wore designer everything. I kept my head down, serving drinks, trying not to be noticed, but Ethan noticed. He smirked when he saw me. "Can't stay away from me, can ya?" he said, loud enough for the people around us to hear. They laughed like he'd cracked the funniest joke in the world. I ignored him. He didn't like that. He grabbed my wrist, lightly but enough to make a point. "You'll come around," he whispered. "Everyone does." I pulled away and walked to the kitchen, shaking. I didn't want to be there anymore, but I needed the cash. And that's when I overheard it. 2 men in suits were arguing near the wine cellar door. "If the investors find out, he's done," one said. "He's already done," the other replied. "Vale's entire portfolio is fake. Most of those buildings don't even exist." I froze. Fake? What did that even mean? I leaned closer. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely breathe. "He took millions," the man continued. "And if the audit goes through, the feds will get involved." It felt like the world tilted. Ethan was a millionaire. But only on paper. His entire empire was a house of cards, and he was terrified someone would figure it out. Suddenly, everything clicked. His obsession with control, his rage, the way he lashed out at anyone who challenged him. He wasn't powerful. He was drowning, and he was willing to ruin lives to keep his secret buried, including mine. I should have walked away. I should have forgotten everything. But then Ethan did the one thing that made this personal beyond repair. When I clocked out that night, my car was gone. Not towed, not stolen, repossessed. I didn't plan on spying on a millionaire, but desperation does things to you. After weeks of Ethan messing with my life, I wanted answers. I wanted leverage. And I found it, by accident, when I picked up a catering shift at one of his private parties. They needed extra hands last minute, and the money was too good to refuse. His mansion looked like it was built to intimidate. Glass walls, black stone driveway, luxury cars lined up like trophies. Everyone inside wore designer everything. I kept my head down, serving drinks, trying not to be noticed. But Ethan noticed. He smirked when he saw me. "Can't stay away from me, can you?" he said, loud enough for the people around us to hear. They laughed like he'd cracked the funniest joke in the world. I ignored him. He didn't like that. He grabbed my wrist, lightly, but enough to make a point. "You'll come around?" he whispered. "Everyone does." I pulled away and walked to the kitchen, shaking. I didn't want to be there anymore, but I needed the cash. And that's when I overheard it. Two men in suits were arguing near the wine cellar door. "If the investors find out, he's done," one said. "He's already done," the other replied. "Vale's entire portfolio is fake. Most of those buildings don't even exist." I froze. Fake? What did that even mean? I leaned closer. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely breathe. "He took millions," the man continued. "And if the audit goes through, the feds will get involved." It felt like the world tilted. Ethan was a millionaire, but only on paper. His entire empire was a house of cards, and he was terrified someone would figure it out. Suddenly everything clicked. His obsession with control, his rage, the way he lashed out at anyone who challenged him. He wasn't powerful. He was drowning, and he was willing to ruin lives to keep his secret buried, including mine. I should have walked away. I should have forgotten everything. But then Ethan did the one thing that made this personal, beyond repair. When I clocked out that night, my car was gone. Not towed, not stolen, repossessed. And the paperwork, signed by Vale Financing, that was the moment I stopped being scared and started planning revenge. Most people think revenge is loud, shouting matches, dramatic confrontations, explosions. But real revenge, it starts quietly. The morning after my car was taken, I walked 5 miles to a public library and sat down at a dusty computer. I had one goal: find every scrap of information about Ethan Vale and his empire. And it didn't take long for the cracks to show. Dozens of properties listed under Vale Properties had no photos, no tenant reviews, no tax records. Some didn't even have a physical address, just vague descriptions like pending development or under acquisition. His website was polished, but the deeper I dug, the more obvious it became. He was lying, to investors, to banks, to everyone. But exposing him would require proof, real, undeniable proof. And I had no way to get it, until I remembered the two men whispering near the wine cellar. Auditors. If an audit was already happening, there had to be documents, emails, reports, something. So I did something stupid, or brave, or both. I went back to the mansion, not inside, God, no, but around the back, through the woods, to a small guest house I remembered from the party. He used it as a home office sometimes. I'd overheard staff mention it months earlier. It took 20 minutes of walking in the dark, and when I finally found it, my heart nearly stopped. The sliding glass door was wide open. Inside, papers were scattered everywhere. A laptop was glowing on the desk. Someone had been here, recently, and left in a hurry. I stepped inside. The laptop screen was open to a spreadsheet labeled Projected Assets versus Actual Holdings. Do not share. My hands were shaking as I scrolled. Line after line showed massive discrepancies. Millions reported, zero in reality. Entire buildings under renovation that didn't exist. Phantom tenants, fake revenue projections. I stayed perfectly still, crouched behind that cabinet, praying Ethan wouldn't hear the pounding of my heart. He paced around the guest house, muttering curses under his breath, while the other man, someone older, calmer, started collecting the scattered documents. "We can't stall this audit forever," the older man said. "The investors want real numbers." "They'll get what I give them," Ethan snapped. "But you don't have anything real," the man replied. "Ethan, your entire net worth exists in a spreadsheet you made up. One wrong email, one whistleblower, and you're done. We're both done." Ethan stopped walking. His voice dropped to a deadly quiet level. "There won't be a whistleblower." The room went silent. The older man sighed. "You think money will fix everything. It won't this time. You're running out of people to threaten." Ethan laughed softly. "There's always someone." He walked closer, too close. I could see the shadows of his legs under the desk. He was inches from where I hid. Then he said something that chilled me deeper than anything before. "Besides, I already have someone in mind." My stomach twisted. I knew exactly who he meant. Me. I'd become his obsession, the one person who pushed back, the one person he couldn't intimidate into silence. And now, I'd been stupid enough to walk straight onto his property. The older man spoke again. If that barista causes trouble— She won't, Ethan interrupted. I made sure of it. My fists clenched. He thought he'd broken me. He had no idea. The conversation moved to the desk. Papers shuffled. The laptop clicked open again. I used the noise to quietly slip toward the back door. Every second felt like an hour. When I finally made it outside, I didn't run. Not yet. I crept around the side, staying low, until I reached the tree line. Only then did I bolt into the woods. My lungs burned. Branches scratched my arms. But I didn't stop until I reached the main road. That night, I emailed everything I remembered. Every quote, every document title, every detail to myself. I wasn't taking chances. But information without evidence was worthless. I needed the files on that laptop. I needed the documents they were trying to hide. And to get those, I would have to break into Ethan Vale's mansion again. But next time, I wouldn't be alone. I didn't know many people. Definitely not the kind who'd help break into a millionaire's mansion. But I did know one person who hated Ethan almost as much as I did. Lucas. He used to work for Ethan as a junior accountant. Smart, honest, the kind of guy who played by the rules. Ethan fired him after Lucas questioned inconsistencies in the company's financial reports. Next week, Lucas's car was mysteriously totaled. A month later, his apartment caught fire from faulty wiring. He survived, but he was never the same. When I showed up at his doorstep that night, soaked with sweat and covered in scratches from the woods, he didn't even ask why. He just sighed and let me in. "What did he do to you?" he asked quietly. I told him everything. The stalking, the repossessed car, the fake properties, the overheard conversation. By the time I finished, Lucas looked like he wanted to burn the entire world down. "You're not crazy," he said. "Everything you heard, it's real. He's been cooking the books for years. Investors didn't notice because he always staged documents and buried audits." "Can we expose him?" I asked. "Yes," he said, "but we need the actual files." I nodded. "They're on his laptop, in a guest house behind the mansion." Lucas leaned back thinking. Then he whispered the words that changed everything. "I know how to get in." He explained that during his time at Vale Properties, he helped install a network backup system. Ethan wanted constant off-site syncing in case of a break-in, which was ironic now. But the best part? The backup drive wasn't in the mansion. It was buried in a server box, in the basement of an old, rundown property Ethan had claimed he was renovating, but actually never touched. The basement felt like it shrank with every step the intruder took. Dust floated in the air, catching the faint glow from the server lights. Lucas and I stood completely still, the hum of the machines suddenly so loud it felt like a warning alarm. The footsteps reached the bottom step, paused, listened. A flashlight beam suddenly swept across the far wall. I held my breath so long, my chest burned. We ducked behind an old metal shelving unit, barely concealed. Lucas's laptop screen, still plugged into the backup drive, cast a faint blue glow. If the intruder looked even slightly to the left, he would see it. A man's voice broke the silence. "I know you're down here." It wasn't Ethan. It was worse. It was the older man from the guest house, the one who warned Ethan the audit couldn't be buried forever. He sounded tired, angry, and desperate. "I saw the back door broken," he continued, "and the system alerted me when someone accessed the backup server, so let's save each other some trouble." He stepped deeper into the room. "I don't want to hurt anyone, but if you walk out now, we pretend this never happened." I felt Lucas tense beside me. His whisper was barely audible. "He's lying." Of course he was. No one protecting a multi-million-dollar fraud would just let us go. The flashlight beam swept closer. I could hear him breathing now. Lucas leaned toward me and mouthed, "Run when I say go." Before I could protest, he reached out and unplugged the laptop, fast and loud. The man reacted instantly. "Hey!" His flashlight snapped toward the sound. "Go!" Lucas shouted, grabbing the backup drive and shoving it into his backpack. We sprinted, The man lunged after us, boots slamming against the concrete. Lucas almost tripped on the stairs, but I grabbed his arm and yanked him up. We burst into the first floor, dodging fallen beams and broken furniture. Behind us, the man roared, "Stop!" We didn't. We threw ourselves out the door, sprinted across the cracked parking lot, and ducked behind a dumpster. My lungs felt like fire. Lucas was shaking so hard, the backup drive clattered in his hands. Then headlights flashed on. A black SUV rolled slowly toward the building. Lucas whispered, voice trembling, "That's Ethan's car." We crouched lower, hoping the shadows hit us. Ethan stepped out of the SUV, furious, talking fast into his phone. "He knows," Lucas said. "Someone told him?" Ethan stormed toward the building. The older man met him at the doorway, whispering urgently. We couldn't hear what they said, but we saw Ethan's face twist into pure murderous rage. He knew someone had taken the backup, and he was going to hunt for whoever did it. Lucas looked at me. "We need to disappear," he whispered. "Now." Running wasn't a plan. It was survival. Lucas and I sprinted through back alleys until our legs gave out, collapsing behind an old warehouse. The city felt too quiet, like it was holding its breath with us. "We have the files," Lucas said, panting. "But he'll find us before anyone else sees them." He wasn't wrong. Ethan had money, people, surveillance, everything except a conscience. If he caught us, the world would never know what he'd built his fortune on. That's when I realized something important. We didn't need to hide. We needed to go loud, really loud. We found a 24-hour diner with free Wi-Fi. Lucas plugged in the backup drive, and we began uploading everything to multiple places. Newsrooms, anonymous tip lines, whistleblower platforms, cloud drives. I wrote a full summary of Ethan's fake empire, adding screenshots, spreadsheets, conversations, everything. Lucas added the incriminating audio logs he'd secretly kept from his time at Vale Properties. Every time we tried to send something, my hands shook. I wasn't scared of Ethan. I was scared of losing. When we finally hit send, a notification popped up. Files uploaded successfully. There was no going back. We left the diner, exhausted, terrified, but finally free, until a familiar roar of an engine cut through the night. Ethan's SUV. I shook my head. "You did that yourself." For a moment, he looked like he might actually attack us. But then, sirens wailed in the distance. Multiple. Getting closer. Ethan's eyes widened. "Someone reported suspicious activity around the old property," Lucas said softly. "Looks like they'll find more than they expected." Ethan backed away, jaw clenched, hands shaking. Then he bolted to his SUV, but it was too late. Police cars boxed him in. Officers jumped out, shouting commands. Ethan Vale, the millionaire who tried to destroy my life, was dragged out of his car in handcuffs, screaming that he'd sue everyone. He didn't know yet. His investors had already seen the files. His accounts were frozen. His company was collapsing. And me? I finally breathed. Lucas turned to me, eyes soft. "It's over," he said. But it wasn't just over. It was justice. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something I thought I'd lost forever. Freedom.